humble you quick.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, I thought, man, I'm golden. I've been backpacking for years. I'm a paramedic. Like, I got this. I got these skills. And yeah, next thing I know, I'm become aware of the fact that I'm.
We can wander our way over, you know, because this is Wandering Ways.
What's Bigfoot possibility?
Clink. How are you today?
Perfect and getting better, my man. Another day, another dollar in this beautiful, beautiful world.
Exactly, right? No, it was great. I was just out your way there in Oregon and got to see beautiful Silver Falls State Park. And
is that your first time?
What? No, I've always gone out there ever since I was a little kid. I think it's the first time I've done the big loop, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because I think when we went with the kid, we would always just do that little loop, and then we'd swim in the river.
Ah, okay. It's pretty legit. Silver Falls State Park, they do a good job.
Well, and I think that's partly, you know, it's people think state parks are underrated because they're not a national park. You know, it's like, oh, it's a state park. It's kind of beneath the national park. But like in reality, most state parks are just like the one hit item that national parks are made out of, you know, where it's like, oh, like, look at this. Like, you know, here's Old Faithful, but it's all here by itself. You know, that's what like Silver Falls State Park. It's like, look at all these waterfalls right here.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
They're cool.
There's a lot of waterfalls just in that that kind of general area. So not just the park, but there's a ton just in that Silverton kind of East Salem area. The Albeca Falls, that it's in one of the videos, and then I have pictures of it on my Instagram, Reverend Marcus. But it's the cool one where it's like the little like dome kind of. It looks like something straight out of the Jungle Book.
Oh yeah.
That's actually in that area, so it's really not far from Silver Falls.
No, it's, I mean, beautiful. Did Multnomah because Jared never seen them before, and just the classic, you know, quick weekend Oregon trip. Left there on Thursday, was back Monday, so
yeah, tired. That's a lot of driving, man.
Yeah, it is, and yeah, I'm not going to get into that. There's some things that, you know, when you drive people and make schedule changes for them, you hope they chip in for gas, but you know. Always chip in for gas, people.
Oh, the tea is good today.
Right.
I got some jasmine tea if anybody's curious.
Oh, this guy. No, but I'm excited. We have an awesome guest, and we talk with this guest today about like being prepared and being over prepared and whatnot. And it reminded me of a story, and I wanted to share this story with everyone. It was back in the early 2000s, probably 2002, 2003, maybe, in the winter. We had a cabin in northern New Mexico in Chama, and we'd go snowmobiling right on the southern Colorado, New Mexico border all the time. So right there, we'd always go up into Colorado and snowmobile. And there was this one time, man, it was a snow blizzard, and we're out there, we pull up and we're like, wow, there's not a lot of trailers is like normal. And you know, there was a group that was in front of us that was like leaving as we showed up, and we got on the snowmobiles, we drove back all the way to the lake. Sure as shit, a blizzard hit, and we were in for it. There was this one bend in the snowmobile trail that I remember. I was sitting on the back with my mom. My little brother Tyler was sitting up with her, and we're going, and she took the corner two in and hit all that fresh powder, and we rolled down the hill and had to get the snowmobile up and out of there. But yeah, it was one of those times where it's like, probably shouldn't have gone back there, but it was fun. We're here. We lived. That's our life, you know?
Yeah, I mean, shoot. Yeah. That incident, but then someone would have a very similar one and they're not here. So
exactly,
you know, it makes you realize how special life is, because it can be gone in a second.
Well, and what I actually find really interesting is you listen to those olden stories of like these journeys and adventures in people's pasts, and like artists and people like that, and like where they learned and studied. Like those hills, people would go, they would take busloads of people into those hills to paint the fall aspen trees. And it was a beautiful area, and to be able to experience that growing up as a child, and that's like a blessing, and to have that, and to have my family do that for me as a child is just awesome. And I'm very appreciative of it, because I think it makes me appreciate places more. And it just kind of goes back to like, just get out there and explore and see the different places, because not one is alike.
Yeah, no, not one is alike. And that, that kind of goes into what we talk about with our guest today. The great and wonderful Kalman, which you guys will meet here in a minute. If you don't know who he is, make sure you check out his YouTube, Everyday Backpacker. Make sure you check out his Instagram, everyday_backpacker. He's got some cool shit, not gonna lie. He's got some cool shit. I enjoyed looking at what he does. But going back to what we were talking about, going out and doing it, seeing it, experiencing it. It's, I don't want to go too much, but I would recommend at least checking out the final words if you don't check anything else out.
Yeah, no, he's great. He likes to hike. We like to hike. We like to see nature. He likes to see nature. I'm assuming that's why you're listening to today's podcast, because you like nature, you like to hike, or you just clicked on something and you're like, what is this? So subscribe anyway.
Yeah, no, please do. But with that being, I don't know. You got anything exciting, or should we just jump into our fantastic guest?
I got one exciting thing out. I might save it though for next time. So let's just jump right in.
Oh, cliffhanger. I'm on the edge of my seat because I don't even know. But no, we'll save that for next time because it'll be a goodie.
Oh, it'll be fan-diddly-tastic.
You heard it here first. Maybe we'll do in the future another Wandering Way review for your trip to Silver Falls too.
Hey, I'm on board.
See, a lot coming up. Not just this week, with an amazing, great interview with the Everyday Backpacker, Kalman. Make sure you check him out. Links below. But we're just gonna jump right on into it.
Enjoy.
Anyways, welcome. This is a wonderful day and another Wandering Ways interview, as we have the wonderful Kalman. Am I saying that name right with us today?
Yep, that's it. Mm-hmm.
Sweet. Just to kind of get things going, if you want to kind of just say what you're doing, you're kind of Instagram YouTuber for nature, which is exciting for us today.
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel, a very small YouTube channel, and I call it Everyday Backpacker, because the original idea was just I watched a lot of other people on YouTube, and most of them were through hikers, which are people that are doing like all the way through the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail, and I kind of wanted to cater more towards kind of the average backpacker, the weekend warriors, people who kind of just get out for a couple of nights and do the best they can, because I hadn't seen much of that. But as I learned once I started, there is actually quite a few people out there who have that same kind of niche. If you think you're the only one doing anything on the internet, you're wrong. There's always somebody out there doing something similar. But interestingly enough, most of it seem to be on the other side of the Mississippi. So there's not as much on the West Coast for whatever reason.
Oh.
And I haven't really seen anything specifically to this area of Montana. So, but yeah, basically I just wanted to kind of, for me, I I didn't set out to be a YouTube sensation or anything. I just wanted to have fun, share some experiences, and learn a new medium that I could kind of explore some creativity with. So and it's been a fun thing to learn. It's going on its second year as of this month. So
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
So where in Montana are you mostly based?
Like Zach, I live in Billings, and most of the videos I've done have been in the Beartooth area, so down by Red Lodge and stuff like that. This year, we're planning a trip in Wyoming, the Cloud Peak Wilderness. So, but yeah, just generally kind of that south Montana area.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a south central, southeastern central. Yeah, it's a weird.
The state's so damn big, it's hard to decide where it
lies. Well, not only that, but I mean, I really appreciate it because I feel like the Beartooths are a hidden gem. Not a lot of people know about them. Not a lot of people go up there. I've only taken Mark up there, like twice. I think you've done the Beartooth Pass. That's about it with your experience there. And like, I mean, I'm like, he needs to do the West Rosebud hike, go up to Mystic Lake, like all that, because it's just like, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different things that you can get into there, and even doing the same trails, there's always something different. And for me, I'm originally from Ohio, and we had like the Red River Gorge in Kentucky to go to, and a little bit in southeastern Ohio, and that was it. Otherwise, you were like walking through cornfields and cities. So for me, I got out here, and I was just like, oh my God, there's so many different things. People are like, have you made it here yet? Have you made it here yet? I'm like, man, I haven't even finished exploring my backyard. So I'm still working on getting a little farther out. But yeah, I think that, I had the opportunity to be here. I was visiting as a tourist in 2001. Little did I know I'd be living out here a few years later. So it's definitely a great place to explore.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
I saw your recent video of also the Crazy Mountains,
Yeah.
which I love. I have a good friend, she's in Oregon. Every time she came out to Montana, she'd see the sign for the Crazy Mountains and would just be like, who would name a mountain range and just like, oh, there's some crazy mountains over there. But I saw your video of the storm that you encountered up there.
Yeah, but anyway, so we were talking about the Crazy Mountains.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have any experience with the Crazy Mountains, but you got hit by a storm up there?
Yeah, so both times I've been to the Crazies, I have been stymied. The first time we kind of expected it because we were really early in the season and it just was too much snow, so we just kind of went down to the campsite. The second one was in September or October, which we were kind of gambling with weather-wise anyways. And yeah, there was a bunch of snow, which we were prepared for snow and cold. I mean, we were generally well prepared, but the wind, oh man, the wind came out of nowhere and just flatlined us. So we got up to the area that we wanted to set up camp, and kind of going into it, I was already having a few feelings of misgivings. I developed a personal test for deciding whether I'm going to continue a trip or not. I call it the magazine test. Basically, it's like, if I've read this magazine article in the situation I'm at and it doesn't end well, I probably should just go ahead and leave the situation. And so I was starting to think, I was like, oh man, I've read this article. This doesn't go well. But I was like, all right, well, all three of us are pretty well versed. So we started to set up camp, and it was getting pretty windy. And then out of nowhere, this gust came, and I looked up and I saw my buddy's tent literally flying across the campsite with all of his gear in it. That was now spilling out all over the area we were in. And my tent was completely flattened.
Oh, wow.
How the poles didn't break, I don't know. But we kind of quickly scattered out and ran around and picked up what gear of his we could, and piled it all up. And we was kind of looked at each other and went, this is nuts. We need to leave. So we packed everything up and we hightailed it down. And our exit strategy was to get down to the part of the road that's a little bit wider, And we got down there and we found a place. It wasn't ideal, but we had to set up our camp by headlamp, and we had a hell of a time starting a fire. And ended up a two-day trip. It was supposed to be ended up being one night, and ended in me and the rest of us eating pizza on my front porch, kind of like, what the hell just happened? So it was definitely one of those trips where, you know, you're like, well, that escalated quickly. So yeah, the Crazies have lived up to their reputation for me so far.
Yeah, they're really cool. I've actually never really been up in them. Closest I've been is that Martinsdale Reservoir, and kind of hunting out by Big Timber and whatnot in that area. But you know, there's the hot springs, there's all that cool stuff. I mean, I think they're named after the crazy woman. It was a crow story. It was like a woman went crazy and she walked up into the mountains like looking for her sons that died, and she just went crazy. And it should be Crazy Woman Mountains, but I think just the Crazies and crazy what we call them out here, you know.
Yeah.
But that's cool.
Yeah, I tell people back home that I was going to be up in the Crazy Mountains, and they're like, that doesn't exist. I'm like, no, actually it does. Right. An interesting side note to that, you know, because I know you guys are kind of into the Bigfoot thing. Right after we got back from that trip, I happened to be watching the Missing 411, The Hunted, and the trailhead that we were at was featured in that film.
Really?
And there's an aerial shot of it, and I was like, holy shit, that's exactly where we were. They ended up going a different direction. There's a split shortly down the trail, but yeah, there's a whole segment on the Crazies dealing with that. I think the guy just had hypothermia personally, but it's kind of a crazy story. So not every day you get back from a backpacking trip and you're watching something and all of a sudden, boom, there it is.
Yeah, that's very rare to have that kind of connection like that. I kind of want to hop back to the magazine test, as you called it. So
yeah,
it kind of sounds like you do a lot of like reading on just general like backpacking stuff. So I was wondering if you had any. I'm a huge reader, so I was wondering if you had any recommendations of things to read for me personally.
So I come from a background of being a former firefighter and paramedic. And so I believe strongly in the concept of continuing education. So I'm constantly reading about technique. I'm also reading about stories. So there's a ton of different books out there. So it kind of depends on whether you're looking for something that's more geared towards lost my train of thought. Geared towards technique or, you know, just stories. You know, right now I'm reading a book by oh geez, I can't think of the name of it. Lawton Grinter, who also has a backpacking podcast, and it's called I Hike. And it's a collection of short stories from all of his 10,000 miles of hiking, which has been very fascinating, pretty relatable. All kinds of stories. Backpackers, if you get a book of stories about backpacking, there invariably will be some story about pooping, digging a cat hole. You know, there are those out there that say you're not a true backpacker until you've crapped yourself at least once. So yeah, there's an enduring term amongst backpackers called hiker trash, because you end up talking about various bodily functions and how they relate to the trail, and
I'm sure
polarity there. As far as like, you know, other like techniques, any book on like leave no trace practices is a really good one, because that's something that's constantly evolving in the outdoor world, and is really important because although some people don't like the idea of having quote unquote rules, it's really what allows us to enjoy the backcountry without exploiting it. And so I'm a big proponent of that. And there's always a new technique. You know, when I started out backpacking, you know, you buried your toilet paper, and now You know, if you've ever come to a campsite and come across what I call a Charmin bloom, or I don't call it, I picked that up somewhere, but basically it's somebody's used toilet paper that's been dug up or just left behind. And it's like, oh, what the hell, man.
Yeah.
You know how disgusting that is. So, you know, now we pack our toilet paper out. And, you know, that's always a fun moment of reaction to various people when you say, oh, yeah, you got to pack your used toilet paper out, and they look at you kind of weird. But so, yeah, anything on Leave No Trace. And there's so many different things out there. The Backpacker's Field Guide is a really great book for technique. It covers a lot of broad stuff. And I like that one because it kind of incorporates what I would say would be the both sides of the backpacking spectrum, because there are the average backpackers and then there's the ultralighters. And sometimes they don't always get along the best. But I like this book because it approaches it both from standard backpacking versus an ultralight. And most books are going to be kind of one or the other. So that one's been a really good addition. And again, it's something that I'm just kind of constantly reading through, just keep my skills up. Because I think it's important as any outdoor activity to keep your skills fresh. The two biggest things that get people in trouble in the backcountry are lack of experience and over trusting our experience. So lack of experience, pretty obvious. People don't know what they're doing and they get into trouble. And then the other one, which has burned even, you know, me, I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but, you know, I was backpacking in the Smoky Mountains. I was a paramedic at the time, and I ended up with heat exhaustion, and there's a solid 3 hours I don't remember and had to be evacuated. So yeah, it'll humble you quick.
I bet.
You know, I thought, man, I'm golden. I've been backpacking for years. I'm a paramedic. Like, I got this. I got these skills. And yeah, next thing I know, I'm come aware of the fact that I'm on a boat.
Oh,
where'd the boat come from? And there was rangers trying to start an IV on me, and I was like, oh, that's not good.
shoot.
Oh, goodness.
So yeah, I think that's why I think it is important to just, you know, kind of keep brushing up on those skills, because things can change pretty quickly. And you know, we should always be students. And the moment you think you know it all, you need to go back to the books because you need to relearn. Otherwise you'll get yourself in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. I'm a huge component on we're basically students all the time. You know, I work in sports medicine, so I'm always learning different sports medicine stuff, but I enjoy trying to learn other stuff outside my profession and the outdoor, you know, outdoor safety, first aid, wilderness, that kind of stuff. It excites me as well. And so to continually learning, I think, is huge. And I think that's awesome that you're a component of it too. Along with
that's another thing.
The Leave No Trace, we're big fans of it here. We've talked about it before.
Yeah, that's the Wandering Ways mantra: is leave no trace. Woodsy the owl.
Yeah, give a hoot, don't pollute.
Yeah. That had to have come from Alexander.
Exactly. That's who exactly it came from. He's a great.
Mark, in case you don't know, Zach and I and Alexander, we all met at Pompey's Pillar. I was a volunteer, still am, I guess, in theory. I haven't been out there for a while.
Well, one of my favorite things about Pompey's Pillar is we teach that it's a crossroads, right? It was a big valley where bison herds can migrate north to south. It was, you know, a trade route for Native American tribes. And even today, where I-90 and I-94 intersect in Montana, almost that trade route. And I look at my life and what I was going through in my life and the people I met, Alexander, Sonny, you, Dave, all these great people, John Reffett, all, you know, we had these connections. And it was that crossroads of, and it's just weird how like these places on earth are that historically, and then in your life and for certain ways, it's like, huh.
Yeah, I think if you spend any kind of time outdoors, you come across places that, and I don't want to get like too into the metaphysical or anything, but there are places that have a draw or an energy, and places that when you go there, it's different, and it definitely, there are. One of my favorite places to go is Sundance Pass, and that's just a place that kind of interests me, and I think that's the amazing draw of the backcountry is when you find those places where it's just like this is important, like this is important for me to be here. This has something to teach me, has something to show me, and it might be something about yourself, it might be something about the surrounding area, the nature. It could be to give you a great story of nearly getting blown off of the mountain because the winds are so bad. And I think for me, that's one of the big draws. Backpacking itself is I watched one at the shop I work at does the Banff Film Festival every year, and one of them there had a guy there, and he was a backpacker with his dog, and he made the comment. He said, "Backpacking isn't sexy." He's like, climbing, mountain biking and things like that, those are sexy sports. Backpacking is what you do in order to do those things. And so most people look at backpacking and it's kind of like this, what's the draw, and I think that draw is that opportunity to experience places like Pompey's Pillar, although you don't have to backpack to get there, but is definitely sites that you go to and you're like, there's something about this site that's important.
Yeah, no, totally. That's so true. When you get in the backcountry, all the cool special spots, it takes a hot minute to get to them. So,
Yeah.
I think that's also part of the lore, the awe of it is, you worked your butt off to hike however many miles you decided to hike to get to either a mountain peak or some meadow or a lake. And so you're like, yeah, no, like I did this, I got here.
Yeah, it's definitely a sense of accomplishment, the ability to see stuff that most people aren't going to see. In fact, one of the reasons that I got started in this is a friend of mine who used to do a lot of outdoor stuff. He's older now and can't get out. And he said, I'd love to see some of the stuff that you're getting to do, even though I can't experience it. And so it's an opportunity for, I think, to be able to share some of those special places. And there are places I go that I don't share just because there's a sensitivity to them. It might be a secret spot. And as an outdoor, I hate the word influencer, it's a terrible word, but as a creator or a YouTuber, you kind of wield this double-edged sword of introducing people to it, but also having the responsibility of making sure that you're not actively aiding in the destruction of something, because we have a tendency as humans to love something to death. And so I think that's where that responsibility of education and, being very careful. I don't geotag any of my trips. Not that there's anything wrong with that. A lot of people do. But you know what? If you want to get to the spot, there's ways to find it. And, I'm not necessarily saying it's not a place. There is one video where I specifically left out the name of the place. But, if people really want to, there's some work involved. And, we have to be very careful not to be the demise of the thing we love because we love it so much, if that makes sense.
No, that totally. I've often wondered, like, for the people on Instagram, YouTube, all of those platforms that are out there creating the content, going, like, if they feel there's some sort of balance that they need of like showing a place or not showing a place, because you'll see there's like pros and cons to it. Because if you go to like Horseshoe Bend down in Arizona, it's part of the Park Service. Before, it was just a random turnoff with a small like parking lot, and now they're putting it in a
parking lot.
It's a big parking lot now, and they're putting in a fee collection. You have to go and show your pass and all that. But I mean, and that's all because of Instagram.
Well,
Yeah, it's getting hard, and it's actually going to get harder. Well, in a sense, because before YouTubers were getting fined by the National Park Service for not having filming permits because they were considered commercial ventures. But now the National Park Service is not allowed to charge any form of fee. They actually lost a court battle over it. So you're going to see even more stuff towards the national parks that wasn't necessarily happening before, because like small channels like myself, we could kind of get under the radar. But these bigger channels that were getting popped by the National Park Service for filming without permits, now they're going to be able to do so. I think it's important to be able to share that stuff. But again, there's a certain level of responsibility that I don't think every creator appreciates, which is kind of unfortunate. But I think the majority of the people that I've encountered in the community, because there is a community, believe it or not, of backpacking YouTubers out there and I've met some friends through it. But I think generally speaking, most of us are pretty conscientious and aware of the fact that there's a certain responsibility that goes with it. That being said, though, I think public lands should be celebrated and shared, because they're open to everyone. And the only way that you're going to get people to become passionate about saving something is for them to love it. And for them to love it, they have to know it exists.
Agreed. There's a few of those places that come to mind when you talk about that. One, we've talked about it on this podcast, and actually on one of our more recent episodes about where we rank our top 5 hikes, is the Hyperion Trail hike in the Redwoods. It's not talked about. There's no sign that says, here's Hyperion, the world's tallest tree. It's all word of mouth, following people while you're down there kind of thing to find this tree, because they don't want it to become this huge ordeal. They just want it to be special in its grove the way it was intended to be the whole time. Another place in Glacier that I think of is Chief Mountain. And to me, Chief Mountain's very, it's holy, to the Blackfeet people. My grandfather's enrolled Blackfeet, grew up there. It's one of those places where there's a lot of spiritualness there for me and my family. So going up there, there's ceremonies we've had up there. I've even shared it with some of my close friends driving up this, and it's a back road in Glacier Park that not a lot of people know about and shouldn't know about. And I took Mark up there once, and just showed him all the prayer bundles and whatnot in the trees. Just a beautiful sacred place. And I think I totally agree with what you're saying. Like, there are those places that keep them sacred, because there is that energy. Yeah. Mark does it. He grounds, which is, it's standing on the ground, bare feet, connecting to the magnets in the earth. But hello, that's an actual scientific study. There's magnets in the earth. There's the way the sun affects us. And who's to say certain places aren't a little bit stronger magnets than others, because that's just how the earth is, So when you're in those places where it feels right, the cosmos are aligned. Yeah, I totally understand and get it.
Yeah, I mean, anytime I go into the backcountry, one, it's my therapy. It's what centers me. It's what puts everything in perspective. And in a lot of ways, it's a place of worship, and it should be revered in that sense. Whatever your beliefs are, this creation is important, and it's bigger than anything that we are. And we should be stewards of that. And as a steward, you should be taking care of it, not using it to the point of well, no, but it's, I only have to worry about myself, but if every single person who goes into these places does everything in the idea of their own enjoyment, and to hell with everybody else, eventually that adds up, and you end up with, places that are, permanently damaged. And so again, it comes down to that individual responsibility. It's not that Leave No Trace is trying to say, hey, don't have fun, follow these rules, or, we're going to, break your knees with sticks. It's really about being respectful of the land and respectful of the other people who are using the land. Because you've had that great experience. Now you need to make sure that other people can have that great experience as well.
Exactly.
100%.
Sorry, I get a little on the soapboxy on that one.
No, I'm all for it because it's a respect thing. If you were to go and like if you go to a mall or I'm talking about concrete jungle now, you go places and you trash it and whatnot, other people can enjoy it. So it's the same idea taking it out into the wilderness. If you trash it and destroy it, no one else gets to enjoy it as well. And then at some point it disappears because,
Well, and to take it a step further, those are some of the most fragile ecosystems. So even the most little bit of trash can ruin it. And that's not, when you start losing ecosystems, that's not good for, humanity. When a mass extinction happens, that's not going to be good for humans. We rely on all the creatures of the world to survive. So
yeah. With that being kind of said, you mentioned, and us too, we want to encourage people to get out. So for, say, the average viewer that's checking out your videos or your Instagram, and they do get excited and they go, man, that looks like a cool place. Would they be able to like reach out to you and say, like, maybe you didn't put where it was? Would they be able to like reach out to you and say, hey, loved your video, where is that? I want to know how I could get there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's comment threads and I can be reached through that. I haven't really, I guess I could at some point. I'll create my separate email account for it because I'm not going to give out my personal email.
Yeah.
But absolutely, I think there are definite ways to find stuff. And then the other thing too is, oftentimes I'll say the general area that I'm in, and there's apps that you can get like All Trails, Hiker Project, and other places that will show these trails and make them easy to find. And like I said, there are other places like the Beaten Path. I was very clear about where that one was because that sees a lot of people. And you're not going to have a dramatic impact on the amount of people that are already going through there because there's just thousands of people going through there already. And so there's definite information. But yeah, I invite anybody to contact me and say, hey, I'm really interested in that spot. And I'll generally, share that. Somebody who's going to take the time and effort to do that is probably somebody who's going to be along the same lines. I just have to be very careful because anytime you put anything out into the interwebs, there's a lot of different types of people. Most people, generally speaking, who aren't going to be respectful probably aren't going to be looking at the video in the first place. But if somebody takes the effort to reach out, yeah, I'll definitely help them to experience something.
Oh, that's awesome. Hello, my wanderers. Before we get going with this episode of the podcast, I do just want to remind you guys to check out our other social medias, the YouTube, the Instagram, the Teespring to get that swag. Make sure to check us out individually. Zach Gray of Quartz Lake, Zach Gray, the Rougarou. Make sure you check out myself, Reverend Marcus, all that fun stuff. The links are below in the bio. All you gotta do is click that bio, look for it, boom, you're on your way. Make sure if you guys want to be part of the podcast or questions to be heard on the podcast, email us at wanderingwayspodcast@gmail.com or quartzlakeproductions@gmail.com. We love the feedback, we love the input, all of it is amazing, and we love you guys for listening. It's awesome. So let's keep wandering on. You mentioned it a little bit about your background in, you were a firefighter and paramedic.
Mm-hmm.
So did you do wildfires or were you like a in-city firefighter?
Yeah, so I did that in Ohio, and Ohio wildfires are almost non-existent in Ohio. There's just not enough wild areas. I was trained on it while I was a firefighter, and I also took classes on it and later on in college when I was going through my wilderness degrees and stuff. But no, I didn't have an opportunity to do wildland firefighting. I was a structural firefighter, which is funny because people who do structural firefighting usually go, I would never even attempt that. That's crazy talk. And then people who do wildfire say the same thing about structural. I mean, for me, you know, at least with structural firefighting, I had a window I could dive out of to get out of said fire and not have to worry about the fire surrounding me. But yeah, I didn't do a whole lot of wildland.
No, I mean, shoot, it's crazy to me. It blows my mind to like that we have people like yourself that are just like, you know, you're like, I'm going to go and stop this burning building or this wildfire, right? Just running headfirst in the fire. It's something I admire because, you know, I think like, could I do it? I don't know. I've never been in the situation. I'd like to think I could, but you know, it's admirable that you're like, I'm going to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to describe it on the outside looking in, you know. We certainly had people came along and were much more about, we called them all glory, no guts, you know, worried about how they look with their fire gear on and all that. Majority of us just did it because it was a job and it needed to be done. It sounds really terrible because a structure fire is somebody's worst nightmare. But for firefighters, I hate to say it, it's fun. I mean, it's what you train to do, I guess. You know, it's what you constantly work towards getting done. But to be honest with you, I think a large part of it was just being young and stupid. I mean, you know, if you look back on it, it is like, wow, I shouldn't have been doing that thing. You know, there's a couple of occasions where I should have kicked the bucket. Was very fortunate that I didn't. But you know, I mean, like I said, it was 10 years. I did it for 10 years. It was a great job. It was also a really hard job in a lot of ways. And that's part of the reason, you know, I wanted to pursue a different career. You know, I thought that 10 years I had accomplished a lot of stuff and I just couldn't see myself doing it for another 20 or 30 years as a career. And it's not the kind of job that you can kind of just, you know, coast through, you know, show up and hang out in your cubicle and just put your head down. You know, if your head's not in the game, you kill yourself or somebody else. And so it was time for me to explore other options. I am not a good poster child for career planning. I'm pretty much the guy who's just a 41-year-old child who just hasn't figured out what he wants to do for a living yet. So,
hey, I mean, if you're living a good life, you're living a good life. There's no point in, if you're the cubicle's it for you, the cubicle's it for you. There's no you just gotta do what's happy, I think, regardless of what you're doing. So, you know,
it's been an entertaining ride so far.
That's good. Did you do the paramedic along with the firefighting, or
Yeah,
were it
so
like two different ventures?
I did it both. So back in Ohio, the fire department did both fire and emergency response. So like we had private ambulance services, but they didn't do emergency calls. They only did hospital transports. Oh. So we handled both. And so for me, it was just logical to become both. And really the best way to maintain employment was to become a paramedic. I was a firefighter before I was a paramedic, and then I became an EMT for a few years. And then the last 4 years of it, I was a full paramedic. And it was a different job. It was more stressful than the other part of it. But yeah, you just basically showed up to work and they decided if you were going to be on the fire engine that day or if you're going to be on the ambulance. And the last 4 years of my career, I almost constantly was on the ambulance, which is, you know, part of the job.
Yeah. Those skills must really translate to the backpacking stuff.
It does, and entertainingly enough, as I've tried to get my gear to be lighter and more streamlined, one of my biggest hurdles was I practically was taking a hospital room out to the backcountry with me because, you know, my firefighter brain, my paramedic brain would kick in and say, well, I got to have this and I got to have that. And after a while, you're like, I've been carrying this piece of junk around for 5 years. And I've never even opened the wrapper on it. So do I really need this? You know, how often are you dealing with severed limbs and stuff like that in the backcountry? So that was kind of a hard part. You know, I would carry around this massive first aid kit and eventually figuring out that it didn't need all that stuff. So again, it's just an interesting aspect of too much experience versus the reality of what you need to be doing. So it does help quite a bit. It also can generate some very entertaining moments of friends going, "Hey, you used to be a paramedic. Come here and take a look at this." I'm like, I want to see that.
I bet you get that a lot.
Friends calling you like 2 a.m, like, "Dude, I think this is swollen." Like, well, then go to the doctor. What the hell am I supposed to do?
Yeah. I'm not practicing anymore.
Yeah, I don't have that card anymore.
Right?
I guess kind of transitioning more to the stuff you did out at Pompey's Pillar, because I actually didn't know that you met like Zach and Alexander and Sonny, who we've had on to talk to. So I've gotten to meet them. Cool. So I feel like I'm meeting the whole Pompey Pillar crew as we do this podcast.
The whole experience.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, what did you do out there?
So I got quickly pigeonholed because I actually have a degree in natural historical interpretation, and I have a background of doing living history or reenactments. I did Civil War reenacting as a kid, and I had a lot of experience with black powder rifles. So very quickly I was pushed into doing the living history aspect, and so would get dressed up in the buckskins and play with rifles, which is pretty fun actually. And because I'm more or less the same age, the same height, and I have the same hair color as William Clark, I was quickly mustered into portraying him when I was there, which is very entertaining. So I did a lot of presentations, and I walked around dressed up in buckskins with rifles strung over my shoulder and made lots of noise and smoke, and just generally was an opportunity to portray that actual historical portion of it. And there's lots of things out at Pompey's Pillar that you can talk about. That just ended up being kind of my role, which is also really funny because I would also like stop and see a rattlesnake and give a talk about a rattlesnake, and I'm dressed in buckskins, and people, what's this guy's deal, man? So yeah, it was kind of fun. So that was pretty much decided for me. I didn't have a lot. I came in kind of clean slate as a volunteer, and the guy that was running it just kind of swooped in and grabbed me, and so I just walked around in funny clothes.
Did you like try and act like Clark, or did you just more or less doing stories?
Yeah, doing first person is a pain in the ass. So most of the time people do what's called third person, which is where they talk about the experiences of the person, but you do it in a modern tone. And I think that was what I did, because something very interesting happens when you go into first person. So when you do third person, when you're doing a presentation, people root for you. They want you to succeed, and they'll overlook things like getting tongue-tied or saying the wrong thing or something, because they want you to succeed, and they're very forgiving in that realm. When you switch over trying to be that person, now it's an acting role, and this really weird thing happens where people want to mess you up.
Oh,
they want to see if they can get you to break character. And I had to do first person when I was in school because I had so much experience doing third person already. My instructor wanted to challenge me, and so I had to do this first person role. And as if that wasn't enough, I had to do it as an Irish immigrant.
Oh, and
so I had to talk in an Irish accent. And the entire presentation, I had to do the accent and everything. And then every once in a while, I wouldn't do a very good accent. And so I'd always say, "Oh, unfortunately, I've been in Ohio for too long. I'm starting to talk like you Yankees." And so things like that. And, it adds in a whole new aspect, and you have to know all this extra stuff. And so it would have been kind of nice to do it, I guess, in first person, but I wasn't prepared enough to do that. and because it takes on a whole different level. So no, I never really got into that point, because it also, especially in the sense of William Clark, can add some very hard situations to deal with because of the fact that William Clark was a slave owner. And things like that tend to come up when you're doing first person and you don't have an out.
Yeah.
And so it can become very awkward. And I felt like it would not do me or the Bureau of Land Management any justice if I was trying to play this role and then get stuck with, well, how do you explain your owning of York? And I was like, oh crap. You know, so it allows, third person allows a degree of sensitivity and understanding and acknowledgement of other people's cultures that first person may not lend itself well to, and it can become very easy to offend people. So for the benefit of the situation, it's easier to do it as a third person. The only time that we did that otherwise was when we would have events. In that case, I would be in more the leadership role of Clark, but I didn't really engage in that, trying to emulate him.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think that's a admirable way to approach it, and a good way to approach it, you know, because it is kind of a sticky situation, like you were saying.
I mean, let's be real.
It did come up from times.
Oh, it did?
You were out there just to shoot the guns. You came out there.
If we're being honest, it was all about the guns. And the other thing too is I have a pretty sarcastic sense of humor, and I know Zach saw some of my presentations, and so humor plays a role in that. And I think that it was easier the way my personality is to do it in that sense, because you can make it more relatable. And I think that if you're not making it relatable, people don't care.
Yeah.
So it had to be more approachable, and it just offered more fun opportunities, you know, like I remember one time we were there and a school group was walking past, and I just happened to be standing there, and some kid said he's got had a splinter or something, and I said, oh, we can take care of that. And he goes, oh, can you? And I ripped out my knife. I said, yeah, we can go ahead and amputate it right now. His eyes got that big around. The teacher thought that was hysterical. She's like, I'm so glad you did that. Kid's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, that would be, I could see the kid's eyes just.
Those are things you get away with as a volunteer that you don't get away with as a paid employee.
True.
We would get reprimanded for that.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, I've got to be that guy. I'm always that guy. We're getting kind of it's time to put in our final words. So at the end of every podcast episode, we do a final words. And since you're our guest, you're going to go first, and you could literally say anything you want. You can promote anything. You can plug anything. Yeah, if you have a PSA, or if you wrote a poem for us, you can read a poem. So it's literally whatever you want to say in the final words. So first off, thank you so much for doing this, Dave. We appreciate it. And
thanks for having me. It was my honor.
Yeah. And with that, Kalman, final words.
I think I would just say, if you are even thinking about going in doing backpacking, just do it. A lot of people get very freaked out about it because there's so much involved. You don't have to have all the equipment. Find somebody that you can go with and borrow stuff, and see if you like it. And don't be afraid to do things wrong. Don't be afraid to not have all the best gear, because it's really not about that. It's about the experience. It's about hanging out with friends. One of my favorite things to do is to take new people along. So if you're interested in doing it, you can watch all the YouTube videos, but be very careful about that, because there's a lot of really interesting information out there. At the end of the day, find the local store or something and talk to the people that work there. They're going to have that knowledge. I do work at a local store, so that's something I do every day. And just do it. It's a great hobby. It's a great opportunity to get out and see stuff that other people don't see. So, if you're tired of going on hikes and bumping into everybody, it's amazing the kind of things that you can come across that no other person sees. Other than that, again, thanks for having me on. The channel again is Everyday Backpacker. If people are interested, I apologize in advance for having to watch me, because I actually hate. That's one of the funniest things about doing this channel. I hate hearing myself and seeing myself on video. Editing is just like torture. But in order for me to tell a story, I do have to be involved in it a little bit. So. But yeah, check out the channel and let me know what you think of it.
Awesome. Would love it. We'd love it. Final word, Zach.
Yeah, no, definitely go check out Calman's channel. Great stories. I saw the one, like I said, about your storm, as well as checked out a few of the other ones where you're telling your Christmas story. I like that. But yeah, I mean, just to piggyback off what you said, if you want to get out and get hiking, it's real easy to do. It doesn't cost a lot. Maybe start, hiking around your town, taking a mile, 2 mile walk, and slowly building up. And then it's like, oh, I'm going to go to this park. They have walking trails. And then from there, you can build your way up to getting to places if you don't know what you're doing, and slowly build your gear. Or just jump right into it. I mean, Mark, I think you just said, hey, my dad has a backpack. You want to go to Glacier? And I was like, sure. Got in the car and hiked in Glacier. Was sore as heck after all that hiking, but it was a fun time. And I think it's more to do it. And I think Calman, when Mark's out here in Montana, we're going to have to take him up to the Beartooths. So
Absolutely,
something to do. Yeah.
No, I love it. I love it. Reverend's final words of wisdom. First, again, I can't thank you enough, Calman, so much for coming on. We appreciate it. It was a wonderful interview today. Everybody check out his YouTube channel, Everyday Backpacker. I think the Instagram is the same.
It is. It's got an underscore between the two names, but yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, we'll have it linked in the bio below for this, in the bio. So check it out. Everyday Backpacker on YouTube, Everyday_Backpacker on the Instagram. He's got some really cool stuff. And if you want to get into it, I think it's a good place to start too. But, you guys, everyone listening is fantastic and awesome. I can't thank you enough. Stay beautiful. And that being said, peace out, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.